never forget through all the pain and the sweat that you're not done with me yet. I got to keep pressing, got to keep pressing on. You know I never forget that you're not done with me yet. And all the tears that I let, I got to keep pressing, got to keep pressing. Now I don't slip.
Okay, here we go. Grace to you, family. I want to welcome everyone to Let's Grow Together. My name is Corey, and I have my friend with me, my brother in Christ,
Amen.
Patrick Clark. And we're going to talk about transition. The Lord put Patrick in my spirit the other morning when I was waking up and wanted us to come and on Let's Grow Together and speak about transition. And when I say transition, I'm talking about our brothers and sisters that are transitioning from being incarcerated back into society. We want to give them some insight to those that are preparing to be released and to those that have been recently released. Not only them, but to their family and friends. We want to give them some insight, some tools, some things to kind of help them, because sometimes we think that we're helping when we're really hurting. And so what we like to start off with, Pat, is you introducing yourself to the people and just sharing a bit of your testimony.
Okay. Well, my name is Patrick Clark. I had the unfortunate experience of going to prison myself. In 1994, I was sentenced to life in federal prison for selling drugs. I did 16 years and 8 months in prison. And coming home, there's some transitional things that we all need, Corey.
Right.
Just we don't know everything that we do need while we're sitting in a prison cell, and our families are not equipped to give us everything that don't know everything that they need to give us coming out.
Right.
So in 1994, I was sentenced to life in prison after 10 years of dealing drugs and
A life sentence.
a life sentence. Life
Wow.
sentence in federal prison is a little different, Corey.
Right.
Life sentence in federal prison means you're not going home.
Ever.
You're not ever leaving here, and the only way you're leaving here is in a casket. State prison life sentence means in 20 years you're eligible for parole. But I was sentenced to life sentence in federal prison for my sins against God and my drug dealing in the city of Austin, Texas. And I did 16 years and 8 months.
But Pat, how, I mean, wow, mentally, when you were sentenced to life in prison, I mean, what was running through your mind, man?
Well, Corey, at the time, you know, it took some time to register the full impact of it. I was also caught up in my mind in a bunch of mentalities that I felt, well, this is just another event I'm going to overcome as well.
Wow.
Yeah, another sentence, I'll just overcome it. I have 3 lawyers. I'll get out
So
of
you
this.
thought the money was going to get you out?
Absolutely.
Wow.
I thought I would overcome that, and I didn't realize the
So
impact.
nothing about faith, nothing about God or anything like that. You thought, you know, the money, the resources you had, that you were going to beat this case.
Absolutely. I thought, hey, this is just another case. I've beaten 3 or 4 already,
Right.
and I'll beat this one.
So how many times were you incarcerated before you got the life sentence?
Well, I was incarcerated once before that, and I went to state prison.
Okay.
And
how
I
long
came
did you stay
home.
in?
About 2 years.
You stayed 2 years the first time.
Yes.
And so the second time you went to prison, you got a life term just for selling drugs.
Yes.
Wow.
Non-violent. And
Non-violent.
still got a life sentence.
So none of your cases were ever violent?
No, sir.
Wow.
None.
Wow.
Just drug dealing.
Wow. Wow.
But Corey, let me talk about and some of the audience, some of the families there. We grow up in our little cities, in our little communities,
Right.
and we have an opportunity to do various things. I decided to deviate from how I was raised.
How were you raised?
Well, I was raised. I was taught to earn a living, to treat
Okay.
people how you want to be treated,
Okay.
and serve Jesus. Jesus
Wow.
was Lord. That's how I was raised up until I was raised that way and taught those things.
Right.
Approximately around 13 years of age, I began to deviate from that.
Why?
Well, I'd like to say as a product of my environment, there was a lot of things going on that tugged at my spirit, that tore down the wall that my mother had built in teaching me how to be a man, how to grow up and be a young man, how to treat people how you want to be treated, how to provide a living for yourself, I began to want to take shortcuts in that. I began to not listen to the wisdom of what my mother told me, and wanted to listen to the wisdom of the people that I saw in my community that I thought had a better grip on that than my mother did.
Right.
So I deviated and listened to those things and began to, and there was other things that pushed me to that point.
Right, right.
Corey, there's, we all have the problems in life. We struggle.
True.
Our lights were cut off 4 or 5 times.
True.
I come home again and again and again, and each time these things tore at me, and I began to question, where's God at now, Mama?
Right.
How come?
Because your mother was a woman of faith.
Oh, absolutely.
But all you could see was the struggle.
All I could see was the struggle,
Right.
and I couldn't
Right.
understand. Well, where's God at? And the lights are cut off.
Right.
Where-
But it's a lot of men, young men, older men that feel that way. Wow.
Absolutely, and we feel that way whether right or wrong. We get our environment.
We're young.
We're young. We don't
Right.
understand, and it
Wow.
tears at our spirit,
Right.
and it causes us to
Strike
lend
at
an
feet.
ear
Yeah.
to those things that we would normally not lend an ear, and to those things that we've been taught against.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But ultimately, I was sentenced to life in federal prison. Life really means life in federal prison. So ultimately, I was able to. I went to prison, USP Leavenworth, where there was a collection of notoriously bad people.
Right.
And ultimately, man, I didn't go there looking for Jesus. I didn't go there looking for a savior. I was simply in prison as plankton floating through the sea, just another body cast in prison. And ultimately, while I was there, things began to transform in my life. God touched my life. I wasn't going down to the church house saying, hey, I really, I'm scared, or I really need help, or God is really calling me. I simply went to prison, and at some point, very early on, God began to touch my life.
Can you point at one specific moment to where you could say, at this moment?
I think I can point to. I know people really want to hear a lot of things about these fabulous scenarios,
Right.
but with me it was more or less subtle. I just remember that in the midst of the storm, in the midst of a life sentence, in the midst of being surrounded by men with life sentences who did not care about life, could very easily kill and keep walking without a second question. I remember specifically one day sitting at the table, just like this, getting ready to eat, and an enormous calm came over me.
Oh, wow.
In light of the situation, in light of the midst of chaos, in light of
Right.
being in a jungle that we call prison, I had such enormous peace and calm, and in my spirit, I felt as if it was telling me it's going to be okay.
Wow.
How, I did not know. When, I did not know. But I think at that moment, I really realized that
Something bigger was at
something
work.
is going on inside of me.
Oh, wow.
And I need to investigate.
Wow.
And that's when it began to dawn on me that that's when the exploration of my Christian journey became very serious.
Okay. So you get a life sentence, and so God is tugging at your heart. So where do you go from here? Did you always, when God came into your heart, you felt like, okay, God is finna open a door for me to be released, or you know what? I'm not even thinking about that. I'm so full of Him and just loving Him that I've just accepted my sentence. Where did you go from there?
Well, there's always the zeal and the desire to come home, to overturn your sentence, to come home. That fight didn't cease, but there was a version of that allowed me to have a mentality after a period of time, have a mentality of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And I was able to say, hey man, I sold those drugs. It ain't the person that told on me. I don't want to blame this person or that person.
You took
I
responsibility.
took responsibility and said, you know what? My mother taught me better than this.
Oh, wow.
I can't blame this guy.
Wow.
I
Your
can't
mothers hear that?
I
Wow.
can't be angry at this person. or
Wow.
that person.
I was raised better.
I was raised better. I knew better. I sold those drugs. And if I never get out,
Wow.
if I never get out, I'm going to serve God anyway.
Wow.
And so that was just really a point in my life. It wasn't the first year, it didn't take till the 5th year. But at some point doing it, after I had that revelation
Experience.
that, man, it's going to be okay, that calm peace over me in midst of a chaos. And Corey, mindful people were telling me, when you came in that back door to the prison, that was the door to your coffin. This
Wow.
federal prison, you will never go home.
Wow.
And this is hearing this stuff over and over by the guards or just various men that don't know
Trying to
Jesus.
tear you down.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
But I was able to get to a point that I said, if I never get out, I'm gonna serve God.
So when was the turning point? So now we see the turning point of God turning you, but when did God begin to turn the situation as far as the life sentence?
Well, I in '94, my case was overturned in 2001. In 1994, 1995, 1996, there was basically, in 1997, the justice system as a whole, there was not much relief, not many cases being won. Every case written in the books, coming out of the courts, appeals court, Supreme Court, were all losers.
Wow.
So there was not much hope in that. And,
Wow.
and I was busy playing basketball and football and push-ups and want to keep
Right.
my six-pack and
Right.
and just doing those various prison activities. And then at one point, I just decided that I have got to make an effort to do this myself.
Wow.
And so I think around 98, 97, 98, 99, I began to study law. And Corey, let me tell you this, I went into the law library, and what they have is a ceiling, books up the wall, probably about 12 feet high.
So you began to study law. What form of education did you have before you went to prison?
I had, of course, I graduated high school.
Okay.
And that was it.
Okay.
Okay. And I was intimidated by those books.
Right.
I'm like,
Where do I start?
where do I start? How do
Right.
and
God.
and not only do I need to learn it, but once I learn it, I need to execute an appeal, and my whole life is at stake.
Wow.
So there was a lot of pressure. So I began to study, and I think around 2000, after various appeal court battles back and forth, the process is you go to district court, you get denied, you go to appeals court, you get denied, you go to Supreme Court, and then you file another petition with a different number, name, that's how they go.
Right.
And you start the process all over again. And during that process, I was able to spend a lot of time studying and learn that basing your argument on law that is of today, where they're all losers, is simply another loser. I had to project, because you have a timeline when you can file these appeals. Your expiration is coming. So I had to formulate an argument of what law should be versus what the law
Was,
is
okay.
at the time.
Yeah.
And I did that, but I only did that through study and just the power of prayer, just praying and being
Oh, wow.
being able to have an opportunity to listen to Supreme Court arguments and hear something that was pertinent to me in the same way I felt that drug amount was an element. Ultimately, I was sentenced to or held responsible for 33,000 kilos. And my attorney, one of his points was 33,000 kilos. This guy
Yeah.
does not have a boat or plane
Wow.
or anything.
And they call it the justice system.
Yes, and
Wow.
ultimately they were able to write what's called a blank check indictment. We'll just indict you and we'll fill in the blanks later.
Wow.
Well,
and they sentence you to life on
Life, because what they were able to do is go back and say, well, how long you been doing this? Well, what
Oh,
about
wow.
this? And they just add up a fictitious number of what they thought,
Wow.
guesstimation of what you could have
Wow.
possibly sold based on testimony of various people,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately came to a number and sentenced me to that number.
this. So tell me about the interaction with you and the judge, the sentencing judge.
At sentencing, my attorney had told me, of course, I went in pleading guilty. There was 150 grams. And I pled guilty thinking I'm getting 12 years.
That's a long way from what, 33,000 kilos.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we go in there, and after my refusal to testify and do whatever they wanted me to do, they decided, well, we're gonna prosecute this person to the full extent of the law. The law at the time, which ultimately
Right.
was against the law.
Right.
And that's what they did. So at the time I went in and I got a life sentence and did not even know, Corey. In fact, I mean, I can laugh now, but when the judge said, I have no choice but to sentence you to life in prison.
Wow.
I'm like, you got the wrong case. I'm Patrick Clark.
Wow.
I'm getting 12 years.
Right.
Life?
Wow, you thought they had the wrong person.
Yeah, I'm saying.
He's looking at the wrong case.
Yeah.
So what you doing, looking at your lawyer?
Yeah, I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, no,
And,
they're messing up.
yeah.
Something's wrong here.
And my lawyer at that point began to yell out some acronyms, ABC, ABC. So I'm frustrated. Why are you saying your alphabets?
Yeah,
And
and
he's-
this man, what's going on?
Yeah, he's telling me that I'm getting a life sentence.
Right.
Telling me you're just a failure of the state system and I have
Oh,
no
man.
choice but to sentence you to life in federal prison.
Wow.
So at that point, I'm saying, hey, there must be some misunderstanding. I had 150 grounds. I'm
Yeah.
getting,
I don't deserve a life
yeah,
sentence.
I don't deserve a life sentence. So he makes mention of, well, did your lawyer go over the PSI with you at the time? I'm like,
Wow.
what's that? I mean, I knew what it was, but of course I'm totally dependent and trusting in my attorney. So at the time we had a colloquy about what my sentence is. He's telling me what my sentence is going to be, and what me and my attorney determined my sentence would be, and it was totally different. So that was the colloquy that me and the judge had at the time.
So when did the turnaround come to where you say, this might actually happen? I'm possibly going to get out of here.
Well, when the Supreme Court made a ruling on a drug case that was my argument 2 years ago,
Right.
I raised an argument saying that drug amount is an element. It has to be
Oh,
on the
wow.
indictment. You can't come up at sentencing and then add up what you think I had. It has to be on the indictment because the Constitution allows or requires that everyone be placed on notice of what they're facing.
Right.
So you can't come later and do it.
Give me ghost dope.
There it is. That's basically what it is. So at that time, I raised an argument saying drug amount is an element and has to be on the indictment. The district court denied it. I went on to the appeals court. So while I'm in the appeals court, the Supreme Court makes a decision on a case that the argument was, is drug amount an element and has to be on the indictment or no? The Supreme Court made a decision and said drug amount is an element and has to be on the indictment.
Right.
And that case came down from the Supreme Court while my case is pending in the appeals court. And ultimately they remanded, applied the Supreme Court ruling to my case, remanded my case back to the district court for further proceedings to be consistent with that ruling. And the judge granted my petition, reducing my life sentence to
Wow.
20 years. And 20 years was simply because it's the default section, 0 to 20.
Okay.
So they took me to the default section, 0 to 20, and maxed me
And you
out.
did 16 on the 20.
Well, first I argued that 20,
I should get to 12. I should get to 12.
I should get to 12.
Right.
And ultimately, the 20 stood, and I did 16 years, 8 months, and was blessed and had the opportunity to walk out of prison and experience what it is men and women need coming out of prison.
Wow, and that's where we at, transition.
Okay.
So here it is. You're getting out of prison. Mindset. Speak to the mindset. That you had, the expectations you had. Just speak to the mindset wherever God leads you.
Okay, well, first and foremost, let me give you two formats. Let me take myself back to the prison cell one day prior to release. There's all these thoughts. Of course, you want to reconcile with your family. You want to make good on things you've done in the past. You want people to see the person that you are
Now.
today
Wow.
versus the person that you went to prison for.
Right.
And there's some things you like to clean up, and then you think about what I'm gonna do. You think about fun times, you think about work times, and you have your idea of how those things are gonna play out
Got a plan.
from that day. Yeah, you have a plan. Well, Corey, now let's transition to a day out here. You're free now.
Okay.
Very quickly, you begin to realize that my mindset of the things I wanted and thought I wanted from a jail cell are very small compared to the reality of the real world. And me now being here, children have needs, family have needs, emotional needs, social needs, financial needs. So it's a big difference in you just coming out and thinking that the way is paved, there's money in the bank, you know, and there's already a job waiting for me. That usually 99% of the time never happens.
Wow.
So that's the difference between that day before and that day after, transitioning out here, and then
That's kind of like night and day, though.
it is.
You know, you're getting out with one expectation, then you get out and the reality hits. Hey, my
Yeah.
plan ain't as thorough as I thought it was going to be.
Right,
Wow.
right. So when you transition into that, the mindset of that person coming out is he has this mindset of what he's going to do, how he's going to do it, the nice car he like to drive in, how smooth things are going to go. Well, the thing with that is all of those things he's thinking in his mind are all advantages and positives. He never considers, well, what if this doesn't happen, and what will I do about it? He never considers
A plan B.
a plan B. And usually everything that you think you want to do, there's some hurdles and obstacles and things that keep you from getting right into the race like you would like to
Like
do.
you thought you would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so so the mindset of that person on the inside is all positive, and you only get exposed to the negative
When you get
once
out
you
here.
get out.
So you get out, everyone's, calling you, texting you, taking you out to eat,
Yeah.
buying you clothes.
Oh man, I love it.
giving you the money handshake. You're looking at $50, and,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
they
yeah.
want to take you different places.
Yeah.
But speak to after the honeymoon, after all of that wears off, and people used to you being home. Speak to after the honeymoon.
Okay, well, that phrase definitely fits where you come home. Everyone has kind of journeyed with you through the phone calls, through prayer, through the letter writing, and now it's come to fruition.
He's here.
He's here. It's a honeymoon phase. It's the most happiest time.
But they had to have thought you were a ghost. You had a life turn.
Well,
and I can imagine people turned their back on you. People
Oh,
wrote you off.
yeah.
Wow. But God.
even some family.
yeah.
So you have to compartmentalize those
Right.
things because they hurt.
Right.
They hurt, and if you're not, if your mindset is not focused on just rebuilding a life, then you could really be angry at those things and think that I need to get vengeance. I need to show
You felt
them.
that?
Yeah. Well, I felt the first 2 years I was very bitter and angry because I felt
people
let
turned their
down.
back, yeah.
By a lot of people that I took care of their families. So
Your first 2 years while you were in
Incarceration.
incarceration.
Yes.
Okay. Now
Yeah.
when you got out.
yeah, and it was actually one of my sisters that shared something with me that really helped me, release and say, I got to move forward. But I would toil at night, things I wanted to do, the people that did things to me, and just wasted time, man. But once God began to get deeper and more in my spirit, those things fell off.
So it's after the honeymoon. So now you got to find a job.
Well, once the honeymoon phase, Corey, we come in and hey, everyone's showering us with gifts.
Right.
And we're having fun. We got new jeans and tennis shoes and watches and money, and we're eating Luby's every day, and
Right.
we're just
Right.
showered with love,
Right.
from all means, and it's just a real reality that you're home and people
Right.
love you and care about you and cheer for your success, and will put their money up to help you be successful in their time.
Right.
And so there comes a time when that stuff's gonna wear thin. Hey, it's been great, but Corey, we need some help with the light bill.
Okay.
Corey, it's been great, but 45 days, none of the jobs have called you yet.
Wow.
Corey, I can't take you Today, job hunting. I gotta go. I can't leave my job anymore. I've taken off all I can.
Wow.
So that phase, that honeymoon phase is over, and now you're starting to see people less and less, and now pressure begin to build inside of you, because not only are people saying things to you about, just living life.
Expectations, and responsibilities.
That's right.
Right.
They're mentioning those things, and you're feeling a little pressure because you want to do these things.
Right.
You want to carry your own
Right.
weight, but things have not worked out the way you thought they would that day before you got out. You thought that first interview, they're gonna love me, I'm gonna get the job, and when you went on that interview, which is now 8 interviews later,
Oh, wow.
and they still haven't called. No one's called you. And while you were there, Corey, you're thinking, well, they love me. I nailed it. They're going to call me 4, 5 o'clock.
Wow.
And you never get a call, Corey.
Wow.
So now you begin to feel some kind of way about the pressures, the light bill. They tell you don't go to sleep and leave the TV on, and just various
wow.
things. And
Wow.
and you want to provide. You want to do right.
But did it ever hit a place in your manhood? Here it is, I'm staying with people, I don't have a car, I don't have this, I don't have that. Because I see a lot of times, even with myself, when I got out of jail, years ago, that hit my mind, what I don't have.
Yeah.
And then you having to feel like you having to depend on people, wait for people to give you rides when you used to be the one that was buying cars for people.
Yes.
Did it ever kind of touch your manhood? Like, oh man, I'm too old to be staying with people, and the pressure.
Yes, absolutely. And most of all for independent men who have, worked
Always
for a
paid
living,
their
always
own.
paid their own way. Now you're dependent on people to
It's tough.
give you a ride, and they're late, or
That's
they're not
tough.
there when you think they should be.
It's tough.
And things begin to involve in your spirit, and you're like, man, I just need to get my own stuff.
Okay.
But there's a process to get to that.
Right.
But right at that moment, you really want a microwave scenario.
True.
I never forget through all the pain and the sweat that you're not done with me yet. I got to keep pressing on. I never forget that you're not done with me yet. And all the tears that I let